welcome listeners to the latest edition of the Talkie Taka podcast. At the end of last episode, I had said that when we meet the next time, either Radhaji or me, one of us will be happy. No prizes for guessing who that person is, as Liverpool beat Chelsea in the Carabao Cup final, and Radhaji is still breaking open a can to celebrate that. We have RK as well on the panel today. So, boys, how has your football journey been over the last week and a half? Radhaji, I think I have to start with you for talkie points. I'm not going to let you celebrate.
I wonder what my talkie point could be this week. Yeah, there's just no doubt about it. There's so many things about that final. It was like a dream. It meant a lot more for all of us fans. Obviously, with the context of it being Klopp's last season, all of that. We'll get more into that. But my talkie moment specifically is going to be, I think, the period in the first half or the second half of extra time. I can't remember exactly where the kids were on, and I think there was just a real a show of absolute amazing support from the fans in the stadium, where Ale 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 was playing or ringing loud for 5 minutes straight during the game. It's almost like the crowd just willed the bunch of nervous kids on, just try to give them a little bit of courage through some of that. It was just incredible to watch. And the Liverpool fans have been calling, after the last two finals against Chelsea at Wembley and winning that, they started calling Wembley Anfield South. So yeah, Anfield South is my talking moment of the week.
RK, do you have anything to add about this final?
Yeah, so one thing, when you talk about the final, the first thing that comes to mind is the Van Dijk disallowed goal. Second thing that comes to mind is the number of chances that Chelsea missed. But I think the standout moment is that disallowed goal. I still can't believe what was the decision that went behind it. What exactly was Enzo being accused of? Was he even offside, or did he even, did him obstructing, not obstructing someone really, interfere with anything going on? Not sure. That was like really mind blowing. It was a really memorable game. So a lot of things, including that, to talk about. But
Yeah,
just before we move on to the final, my talkie moment is not the Van Dijk one, but it's really horrible Saturday evening, which we had last time out. A lot of us were expecting, at least United fans had talked about, how kind of unconvincing in some aspects United have been, despite winning four consecutive Premier League games. So all of that came home to roost. Literally came home to roost last Saturday. So at home, losing in added time, losing in Fergie time in Fergie's home was like pretty mind blowing as well. So that's my talking moment. And by the end of that match, I was really hoping for us to lose, because I didn't want another performance, like another bad performance with a decent result. So yeah.
yeah. And my talkie point is also from the final, where I mean, yeah, Liverpool Chelsea played out, and I'm just a bit confused with all this Klopp's kids narrative, considering Chelsea's average age was around 2 years lesser than Liverpool's at the start of the game, and was 1.5 years less than Liverpool's at the end of the game. So, yeah, for me, it was just older kids beating younger kids, and probably the older kids had more experience, despite the fact that they were all kids. And that proved decisive at the end. And I'm sure Radha
Yeah,
has
I mean,
something
I
to say
think we
about
should.
that.
Yeah, I think just like Pochettino after the game, swag, this is pure some A-class gaslighting happening right here. Just missing the point. I think the point is not just the age; it's the fact that we're like, they are kids from a footballing standpoint. Like, they've not played any football at a senior level at all. It was that aspect rather than the average age of the squad or anything of that sort. So there was a guy who made his debut in professional football on Wednesday and then came on in extra time in the cup final. It was that kind of thing. So, and if you actually look at it, you're talking about an entire team with their experience, Van Dijk, very expensive signing, all of that together, we're talking about the entire Liverpool team costing less than the two central midfielders of Chelsea, right? So I think that's the aspect that I think everybody's talking about. Although I completely feel Gary Neville went over the top with with those comments. I mean, what on commentary he said something about the billion-pound bottle jobs. I felt like that was a pretty personal
Billion pound blue bottle
kind of.
jobs.
Yeah, so it seemed like a pretty nasty comment from him. But I think the part about kids is not just the age; it's the fact that they've never really played football at a senior level. A lot of them.
So Radha, before you get away with that, whole squad cheaper than the two midfielders, just remember that if it had been about choice, Liverpool were also ready to pay that amount for one of them.
Correct, and then they would have no excuse to really throw around if they started a final with Caicedo and like say all of our best midfielders, then of course it would be a very different situation than what actually happened on Sunday. So I mean, obviously, if we had our first team, we would have been favorites. I don't think there's any doubt about that. It was the fact that the people who were playing, literally, I had seen Dance for the first time on Wednesday when he came on against Luton, right? So it's literally people that you've never seen play for Liverpool before, like coming on and having to do a 30-minute job against a bunch of talented players. All said and done about their inexperience, it's a 500 million kind of lineup, 11, right? Like they would have had experience in their own leagues and stuff before that. So it's not a you can't write off that Chelsea were a decent squad of players as well. So in that sense, it was a good achievement and a big achievement. And the point is not really about the number, the age. Even Pochettino went straight for that comment, which I found a little strange. I think again, I kind of missing the point of well, I guess what a lot of people were talking about.
Yeah, and I think if I mean, obviously, if it wasn't for I don't know his first name, Kevin Kelleher, it would have been Allison. But Kelleher had a man of the match style performance. If he hadn't been as good, it might have been a different result on the day.
It actually wouldn't have been Allison. So Kelleher has been the Carabao Cup keeper now for the last couple of years, and even the
Yeah,
last final against Chelsea,
correct.
he was the starting keeper. So even if Allison was fit, he probably wouldn't have played. So, but I have to, now that we've like come into the players, I have to like call it out. Kelleher. I know Van Dijk won man of the match. It's easy to give a man of the match to the guy who scores the winning goal in a cup final. But for me, there was no doubt about it. Kelleher was man of the match. He literally kept Liverpool in the game. This was a game Liverpool probably could have not, but should have lost. I think there were that many really good chances and that many outstanding saves from Kelleher all through the game. Just an outstanding keeper. I really can't wish for a better second keeper. Looking at what's around the league in terms of even Chelsea have a decent second keeper, but Kelleher for me is right up there, as good as they come. So, and he's done. This is the second final where he's playing a critical role, and us winning as he saved a few penalties, scored the winning penalty last time around, and this time he was clearly man of the match for me. So yeah, Kelleher really won us that cup, along with obviously Van Dijk and everybody else.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it was a tale of two keepers. I think even Petrovic had a couple of really great saves. Was one of them probably from the new striker, if I remember correctly, Dan's, where he tipped it over the bar as well. So Petrovic also had a really good game. But Swag, what do you think about all those missed chances? Some of them really, really embarrassing. Sterling's in the first half on that Jackson counter, and Enzo kind of screwing up what looked like not that complicated a finish, but then I don't know what he ended up trying to do. So many missed chances. I'm losing count of them. Conor Gallagher, oh my god, at the end, I think he had the best of the lot.
yeah. So listeners might actually think that I've teleported from one place to another to answer RK's question. It was that tough a question for me to answer, but isn't that the story of the season? Like the the entire season, it's been the same thing. It's like different ground, same stuff, missing chances, creating chances, missing chances by the boatloads. My daughter agrees as well, and uh, like it doesn't matter if it's Nicholas Jackson, if it's Enzo Fernandez, if it's Raheem Sterling. You just put a blue shirt on and you'll miss it. You put a blue shirt on a sniper and he'll probably shoot himself. So yeah, that's what we have to
I
keep in mind.
I actually think that's I again I'm not endorsing what Neville said, but I think that aspect you called out a specific example of Enzo Fernandez, right, where he's literally 4 yards away from goal and then tries a back heel, and then there's a ball bobbling around in the box, and finally somebody just hits it straight to Kelleher or things like that. It's those kinds of things which I think made Chelsea look like they were mentally probably not in the best shape by the end of the game. I think they were looking like the better team for a large part of the first 90 minutes, but by the in extra time, I think you could see them waning. Um, I think we were watching it together, RK. I still told you guys that if we go to penalties, just considering the experience of the team, I do expect Liverpool to be second place in if it goes to penalties. And I think it was a really getting out of jail thing when Virgil van Dijk scored. But you could actually see Chelsea were waning, like they mentality wise, you could see them kind of shrink. And I think that's what the whole bottle job thing. That narrative is not really so much about Chelsea's performance on the day, which I think warranted perhaps winning, could have warranted winning on another day. But it's more about that last 20, 30 minutes when the team, for example, if you have Caicedo and Enzo Fernandez, I know they're young, okay, but they're 21 and 22 or 23 or whatever. But you're talking about one World Cup winner and one seasoned Premier League player at least. And I say seasoned lightly, of course, he's played a season, but it's basically those guys against really, I mean, who are the people they're up against? They should be physically dominating that the players that came on. They should be mentally dominating them, but you didn't see that. Maybe it was the fans, maybe it was the crowd that got really riled up, and perhaps the inexperience of the Chelsea players also played a part over there. But it shouldn't have been the case where they looked the side that was more mentally perhaps stepping down in that game, but that ended up happening.
Yeah, it almost looked like those Gallagher chances at the end kind of affected them because I think couple of them, I think he had three good chances and couple of them were really guilt-edged ones, and I don't know if that affected them in extra time where suddenly they were like one finish away from victory and now facing a whole bunch of kids. But as you said, rather, even with that situation, they should have still kicked on. I can't remember a very big Chelsea chance in the extra time. Maybe there was one, but it was mostly Liverpool who looked like they would be getting that goal.
Yeah, and extra time was definitely shared by Liverpool, and I think after the match, Poch said something to the effect of the team, and this might be his lack of clarity when speaking in English, but he said something to the effect of the team felt better if it was going to go to penalties or something like that. And if that is the case, then you're already on the back foot if you have to play 30 minutes playing for penalties, and Chelsea weren't a particularly defensive side, right? It wasn't like you camped in your half and you would not want to do anything. You're just trying to prevent a goal from happening and take it to 120 minutes and then go to penalties.
And
So
also Poch saying that reflects on him as a guy who's never won a trophy, right? If a manager comes out and says that the squad was playing for penalties and that too against a team who was probably has four or five almost kind of debutants. Most of them must also be debutants. Couple of them maybe how many games old? Kwanzaa came on right at the end, maybe 4 5 games, 5 6 games he's played, and all the rest are basically completely fresh. And if you think that you are better off taking them on penalties, I think that shows. And a lot of the mentality in a final comes down to a manager also and what he is kind of what energy he is giving, what kind of belief he is giving. Probably the fact that he's never won anything substantial. I am not considering League One in anything substantial. So that shows, probably in the belief that he's giving to his squad as well.
Yeah, I agree. I think there is historical. I mean, am I really going to quote Jose Mourinho and say heritage? But I'm sure there are aspects of the fact that you have to keep in mind. that just 2 years ago, like last season was an outlier season, but 2 years ago, Liverpool were fighting on four fronts, right? And they ended up winning two cups 2 seasons ago. So that is fresh in certain players' minds, right? Kelleher, I mentioned, Van Dijk. So there were two of the guys who survived from the previous starting lineup. So that, and of course, it's a brand new Chelsea team and a brand new Chelsea manager who, like RK said, maybe they're not one. So I'm sure there was context there, but I want to focus on the Liverpool side of that context, right? I can't, I can't. I think this final really hit home to me how insanely important Klopp has been to this club. You bring on, and by the way, the debut for most of the guys who came on in the final was on Wednesday when we played against Luton in the Premier League, and we won that game quite comfortably in the end. But again, these kids came on and really played a part. So Dan's ended up actually getting an assist, well, like a not exactly an assist, but he played the ball, then the defender just about touched it, and then somebody else scored. So I think Klopp, one, creating a system within the club where the youth team, the reserve team, the first team all play the same way, and instilling a culture where the first thing that anybody needs to do at any level is learn how to press and learn how to defend. And the fact that you can then bring in people literally the week of a cup final for the first time ever playing football and actually contribute. And Dan's ended up scoring 2 goals the game after the cup final. We played Southampton in the FA Cup, and he ended up scoring 2 goals in an FA Cup tie. So, and these guys are just like going from strength to strength, and that's all down to the system that Klopp and the coaches have put into place. So it's just really hit home how much you're going to miss. The guy has worked miracles. I mentioned it when I was doing the tribute episode, where winning is just a bonus. It's really the best time of my supporting Liverpool in my entire life, and winning is a bonus. I mean, it means a lot more to win this season, like I mentioned, because it's Klopp's end of the season, and I hope this means that we will have a parade regardless of what happens in any other competition. And on that note, we talked about it last week. I was looking for tickets. I've sold a lot of my possessions, and I've bought tickets for May 19th, the last home game at Anfield, the goodbye game for Klopp. 60,000 people, full capacity Anfield is going to be in tears, and I'm going to be right there. And hopefully, we have more to celebrate by the end of that season. Hopefully, there's a parade as well. So, yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. But, yep, I've got my tickets and I'm waiting for my visa and stuff, and I'm going.
Yeah, eagle-eyed listeners will note that Radhaji doesn't have his wireless earphones anymore. He has to make do with regular old wired earphones amongst the list of possessions that he has had to sell. Yeah, moving on. Manchester United, RK, you mentioned them, and you guys basically ended up losing as Twitter had a field day saying to a Nigeria 11. Both goals for Fulham coming from Nigerian players in Fergie time as well at home. Take it away. What went wrong, or what is going wrong?
I think it's mainly off the ball, where the coaching seems to be completely absent. So one of the things that has been wrong from the start of the season is how we react to transitions. And I think Carragher kind of hit the nail on the head. I think we have talked about it on the spot long before he did, by the way. So, where we have talked about United pressing high, and then having a deep line, and then people like Casemiro having to cover so much ground in the middle of the pitch, and which makes them look much worse than they actually might be. Not to say that people like him are not declining, but even then, when you leave so much space, good players can also look bad, right? So I think that's been one reason why we concede so many chances on defensive transitions. We have the second most shots which have been taken against any side in the Premier League, other than Sheffield United. So that tells a story. We are pretty deep into the season, and stats like that, don't hide anything. Also, our defensive organization of the ball is also not great. The rest defense is also not great. So when you see us on the ball and you see the last line, the three people who are there at the back, uh, one is that they are deep, but they always, in terms of organization, also it's not great in terms of how far apart they are from each other, or how organized they are. So that's also something that leaves a lot to be desired. So, and then you also talk of set piece organization. So, if we are not the best team defending set pieces, we do lose to set piece ploys like like shadow runs and stuff. So it's not something that we have been able to improve. So you look at all aspects of defensive organization, and United are not there, and that's what was happening against Fulham as well. Especially down our left side, they kind of dominated us in the first 30 minutes, and from the first whistle, you could sense a kind of lethargy in the squad. In the first minute itself, someone even as good as Kobe Mainu misplaced a pass and all, almost conceded possession. So that was a bad sign. Things kind of picked up in the last 10-15 minutes of the first half, and then my feeling was that probably they would get a bollocking at halftime and come back out and play better, but that didn't happen. If anything, the second half was the worst 45 minutes of a pretty bad season, pretty low standards as it is, to the extent that I talked about it at the start of this pod. By the end of it, I just wanted us to lose that match. I didn't want another fake result to come in, another added time miracle fight back. Harry Maguire almost looked like we would be doing another one of those added time comebacks. But I think in a way it was good that we got that kick in the teeth conceded, because at least it reflects on how we have been defending as a team, and I feel it's good that people like Carragher are bringing up tactical points. For a long time, I was very frustrated watching and hearing Ten Hag's press conferences. People don't really talk about the tactical stuff and why he's not been able to rectify certain things. It's more about Rashford not playing well, Jadon Sancho having a discipline issue, Anthony having some problem. I know after a point, I'm not really interested in talking about those kind of things. I want people to ask questions which are actually affecting the team in terms of how the coaches can impact it, and that's been lacking. And I was really happy that Carragher was able to talk about that.
And it's also, it's not just about, it's about questioning his well, let's say, competence, right? I don't think in a lot of course he's one of the favorites to get the sack, and he's number 3 or whatever in that list, so there is a lot of pressure on him. But in the public front, I don't think there has been too much of scrutiny on his actual competence. And we are talking about a tactician, right? We when United was signing him, he was supposed to be the tactician forward kind of coach. And there is a lot to, we really came on this pod and we laughed and we derisory tones about Ange when they did that high line when they went down to nine men, right? But for me, playing a system which has a 60% of your team pressing high and then a huge gap and then 3 or 4 like guys at the halfway line, that is as naive and stupid as a tactic for me. And this is not, like RK said, this is not the first time, and it's not the first time we have also talked about it. So maybe we should have I mean, said something controversial, and maybe then we would have got called out by people in the UK. But my point is that it's not now a one-off case. So it's some, I think it is the right time, and it's the same with Poch, right? Like some of the things that we were talking about, mentality, there are things that he has to instill in his teams. And both of them, it's not a coincidence that both of these managers responded to a Sky journalist's analysis, or not analysis in Gary Neville's case, or like jibes, right? So like, I think it's very clear they're both under a lot of pressure, and the fact that they've even brought themselves down to a level where they're addressing they Carragher and Neville. Although Carragher's piece was really good, I think it was very well done, and I don't think there was anything wrong or anything biased in what he's. I'm sure he's biased, but I don't think that piece was anything biased. So the fact that they are now responding, I think, is not a good sign for both clubs. I think the managers, when they reach this zone, it's a slippery slope from here.
Yeah, and the tactical choices also. So in position, I thought his Ajax team were a sensational team to watch in terms of the patterns, the pass and move that they were able to implement, and you can sometimes see some of that at times with this United team also. So in terms of build up, I'm not as hopeless as the off the ball work is, but even on that aspect, the things that he got wrong, wrong in this match. So with the inform Hoylund injured, what does he choose to do? If I was thinking logically, we have a front three who's been scoring goals, working in tandem well. Our XG creation has also improved a lot in 2024. if one of the main guys is out, I would keep the other two in their position, and whoever comes in replaces Hoylund. What does Ten and I think that's a no-brainer for me going into that match. But what does Ten Hag do? He changes all three of the positions. Garnacho, who was playing so well on the right, goes to the left side. Rashford, who was playing decently on the left. We, of course, there are things off the ball which are uncompromisable, which we have kind of targeted him for. But he plays as a striker, which he's never done well, especially this season. And then he brings in a debutant who had a couple of encouraging displays at number nine. He was actually a winger, but he's played decently at number nine in a couple of cameos. And what does he do? He plays him on the right. And on the right, you have better options than that debutant. Sorry, you have better options than Forson on the right. You have Amad Diallo, who you can bring in. I would say, you even bring in Anthony for God's sake, but Forson has never impressed on the right for us, even in preseason. So I think he got everything wrong with the team selection, and the whole body language, the energy was so down. It all could be how probably they were also lacking belief in how they were set up in that game. That's what I would like to say. When your team energy goes down, I think it has to do with the kind of belief they have as well.
The, there is already some chatter about who will potentially succeed Eric Ten Hag, because now that Ratcliffe is in charge, he's just giving him till the end of the season and then he will make a decision. And obviously, displays like these don't help his case. If he is let go, I think it is still Graham Potter at the top in terms of the betting odds. And I don't remember who's second, and third is Thomas Tuchel. I mean, apart from these two as well, who would you actually have come in if it's not Ten Hag, if it comes to
Yeah, I
pass?
think probably the two names outside of England I can think of. I'm not convinced by either of them, but it has to be probably Nagelsmann and Amorim. Amorim has those same problems which Ten Hag had, coming from a league where you can do whatever sensational stuff you want, but it doesn't really prove much in terms of what you cut at the highest level. And Nagelsmann might be a good good coach on the training ground, but I think he's had his issues with man management and managing pressure, which is at a very big club, which he struggled with at Bayern. And uh, probably in terms of personality, he's not really shown that he can take on that kind of a challenge. So I'm not at all excited by the rather the opposite part of it. When you mention Potter's name, I just want to vomit or something. But so it's really not looking great in terms of options. It's not like we have someone like an Alonso, who we have had a great legacy with. Like there's no great ex-United player who's really catching fire somewhere. So that's also difficult in terms of who we are going to bring in.
Yeah. So
Yes,
on from a Liverpool perspective, Alonso, obviously everybody's talking about him, but Amorim is actually, from everything that I'm reading, very high up on that list of priorities as well. So whatever analysis and analytics that they do in their search for managers, and the same team who did it for the eventual decision to hire Klopp will do it again, right? So from all the articles that I'm reading, Amorim is thought of very highly. So he, I'm sure, would be on the radars of Chelsea and United as well. So unless you're Rio and you think that it's going to be Arteta who comes to United, one of the most, like, the level of clickbaity shit on that we see these days is just so annoying. Rio Ferdinand, man, he's like one of those guys that you just have to mute from all forms of social media.
yeah. Yeah, so it's Graham Potter who's under 3 is to 1, who's got better odds than 3 is to 1. Then it's Amorim, 6 to 1. Tuchel, 6 to 1. Then Simon Inzaghi at 8 to 1. And then
I think
So, yeah.
Deserve is an interesting name. I thought about it briefly last week after this Fulham game, but yeah, it has slipped out of my mind. Probably that is something that would excite me much more than the other names. Amorim,
But are you not a little worried about this? We've not talked about it much since the first, say, 5-6 games of the season. But haven't Brighton fallen off a cliff?
Yeah.
They're quite close to mid-table mediocrity right now, right?
They had a run of 4 wins in 17 games in the Premier League this season, which is obviously nowhere near what they had last season. I think the mitigating circumstances that they're in Europe for the first time and they're doing decently well there, and because of that, a lot of that is mitigated. But yeah, I remember James Horncastle once talking about the fact that he rarely gets sacked because he moves on to some other place by the time things are at his current club. So it might just happen that it's something similar with De Zerbi at the end of the season. But again, you're looking at Bayern, you're looking at maybe Madrid, you're looking at Liverpool, you're maybe looking at United, might even be looking at Chelsea. All these places might be looking for managers, and there's not too many elite ones to go around. So we might end up with someone taking a punt on someone new or not so established. Maybe it's Graham Potter at Man United. You never know.
The lesser we talk about that swag, the better, please.
I mean, thank you, Lucky Stars. Ab is not here, but yeah. FPL chat. Haaland was triple captained by some people in the hope that he would score tons of goals, and failure to do so has meant that Ashwin is not on today's pod. He decided to give it a miss. Any key tips and tricks, rather, for this weekend's action? I
Ashwin must be so pissed off about that because the next game, which is a non-league game, goes and scores 5 goals.
Yeah, and 4 assists for KDB as well.
Yeah, not just Ashwin RK. Anybody who plays fantasy is pissed off right now. As someone who triple captained Haaland maybe 3 months ago, and Pep took him off at halftime, and I got 1 point into 3 points. I don't have any sympathy for any of these people right now. But yeah, I think a couple of sleepers who I think football managers should start, fantasy managers should start looking into. I think Fabian Gross is just like looking so consistent at his outputs, goals and assists all through. I think there's a really interesting one given the price, Muniz from Fulham. I really loved the game that Muniz played against United. I know that there were a lot of challenges in from United's play point of view, but his centre forward play I thought was really promising. He looks like somebody who's going to get on the end of things and also set up people in his team. So he's definitely one at a really cheap price. I think it's around 4.9 or something. So he's one to look at as well. Um, I never liked this guy, but they have a bunch of decent fixtures coming up. Jordan Ayew as a midfielder suddenly seems to be involved, and there's a new manager bounce possibility there as well. So he's someone for a cheap alternative as well. But I think this week Arsenal have some easy fixtures. I, for one, am going to be captaining Saka and not Haaland against United.
Jared Bowen just saved his manager's job. I don't know if that, he's coming into form, had a pretty good season last time out. Let's see if he catches fire a bit more.
He's actually one of the top scorers of the FPL season so far. But he's had a maybe rough patch of the last 4 or 5 games before this hat trick game. And actually, I had a tough choice between him and Gross. I've gone for Gross this week. So let's see how that works out.
One more thing in terms of differentials, Dom Solanke has been one of the highlights of the season. His fitness is still under question, so there might be a case for Marcus Tavernier to come into Bournemouth's squad, particularly because I think they play twice next game week. So that might be an interesting shout to look out for. All right, moving on from FPL. The other teams chasing the title, Arsenal and City. Arsenal thrashed Newcastle. I mean, it's ever since they've come back from this break in Dubai or Abu Dhabi, wherever they were, like 6-0, 5-0, 4-1. Okay, they're probably losing steam. They're going down one goal every game, and, and this time they conceded one as well. But thrashing Newcastle so badly.
What a display! I saw almost the whole game. Uh, the f- right from the outset, the domination that Arsenal showed, Newcastle were just camped inside their own half, defending in those typical old school banks of four, two banks of four. You don't to it's not easy to dominate Newcastle like that. Newcastle have been on a bad patch. They are conceding lots of goals, but territorially dominating them to that extent is not easy. So it shows how good Arsenal are fundamentally, that they can do that. And some of the speed of the passing between, or especially on the right side, between Odegaard and Saka, it's they have hit a new level right now. They always had a good chemistry, but things are really coming together on that side. Havertz is also, gelling more into the play. He's able to, link up more, make, even though he's still missing, really easy chances. But as a whole, that unit is really, really clicking. Lots of really fast, sexy, beautiful moves that they are bringing up. I can say lots of, only good things to say about how Arsenal are playing. The only complaint they would have is probably their old homeboy scoring against them. And after that, I think he kind of shoved one of those Arsenal players off also. So probably they would not be happy about conceding to him. We have seen lots of instances of, ex players coming and scoring against their older clubs. So other than that, it's been I think it's been the best tenure of Arteta's era, probably the last 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah, listen, I know this is going to probably not pan out, and you can never Man City just lull you into this. But honestly, if you ask me right now, who do I fancy, Arsenal or Man City? For me, it's Arsenal right now. I think their defensive solidarity is consistent. They have a real game changer. I mentioned it a few weeks ago, but for me, the real game changer is their set pieces. Again, against Newcastle, the set pieces were back. It's such a competitive advantage that they have right now, and this is in a week where honestly, I think Man City were dead lucky that they didn't end up dropping points, because Bournemouth tore Man City apart in the second half, and Man City are looking like they can be got at. Of course, it's a matter of time until they have like a final 5 goal performance from Haaland and 4 assists from De
Right
Bruyne.
this weekend, rather, it's going to happen this weekend.
Yeah, sure, and it might happen this weekend also, because there are a lot of problems at United's end, and Man City are due one. But my point is, every second or third game, Man City look vulnerable. Arsenal just don't. They dominated a very good informed Liverpool team. They've smashed everybody else that they faced pretty much in this new year. They've conceded like a ridiculously low amount of goals in the last 10-15 games. I If you were to ask me, if I was forced to place a bet at this point of time, Arsenal are my favorites to win the league.
I'm not moving away from City at all because they have this, capability just to get those 3 points. That's what they do. That's what they have done in the last 2 games. I think no one knows to win better than City six in the last 7 seasons. I mean, the, they might not always be the most convincing, but they will somehow get the job done. The only thing
I
I'm
agree.
hoping for is, they lose some, which they're not showing at the moment, lose some hunger. You have won 3 consecutive leagues. Lose some hunger, guys. It's just not human.
I See, I agree with everything, and I'm never going to come out here and really dive deeper into questioning Man City's credentials to win the league title. That's not going to happen. But all the signs, the momentum, at this point of time, I think Arsenal are playing better than Man City. And Arsenal last year were playing better than Man City in the first half, and then they had the second half to kind of show a decline. This time they've managed to stay neck and neck while not really performing that well in the first half. And now they look untouchable, really. They look really, really good, solid in all the games that they've been playing. Goals are flowing. Everybody looks energetic. We were saying a few maybe months ago that they're looking lethargic. Saka's looking tired. Everybody's now looking fresh and fit. Um, I know I'm not going to come out and say Man City are incapable of winning the league. Nobody's going to. I mean, I'm not going to get sucked into that again, or so I think. But yeah, Arsenal for me right now are just edging it, and yeah, that's I can be proved
But it's a
totally wrong,
great
of course.
narrative because everyone, has their own kind of momentum swings going on. Arsenal looking for that first trophy in so many years had a, really tragic end to last season, and now they look stronger for it. Liverpool at, on an emotional roller coaster ride, and probably that's going to give them momentum. Man City, it's always like, defending their fortress. Guardiola is all back to being pumped up. De Bruyne 4 assists, Haaland 5 goals, that kind of form building. So it's each of them, on their own, I think, turbocharged path, I would say.
Yeah, I know you tried to include Man City in that just because there are three teams fighting for the title, but their narrative is pretty freaking boring. Like, oh, just another the third title we'll win, and Pep Guardiola. They're like they don't have a story, but yeah, of course they are probably going to win the title anyway.
Yeah,
But speaking of City,
they might just be going for a repeat of last season where they end up winning the Champions League, the Premier League, and the FA Cup.
honestly, again, if you really think about it, and you can never write off Real Madrid, but you honestly think about it, who's going to stop them in the Champions League? I honestly feel it's the best chance is Arsenal only. Who else? I really don't see anybody in a two-legged tie against Man City coming close to stopping them. I do feel like Arsenal in the league over the last 3-4 games have shown that they can walk neck and neck with Man City in a one-off game. And in a tight game, I think Arsenal's set piece dominance is a game changer. So even in the Champions League, I think Arsenal are the only team that, and knowing Arsenal, they'll probably like lose to Porto, and
Yeah.
it's possible, right? So they're
So,
equally capable of beating Man City and equally capable of in Europe losing to
so
somebody you don't
you
expect
know,
them to lose
if
to.
my brother hears this pod when it releases tomorrow, the first thing he's going to say about these 5 minutes is Radha is on a jinxing spree because and the reason for that he will give is that Porto is 1-0 up and it's going to be so tough and blah blah blah. But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I don't see anyone beating City over two legs. Even if, okay, by a freak incident, you say that, okay, City have lost the first leg, they know exactly what they need to do in the second leg to win. It's
But
only,
Swag, it can be also moments team who can do it, who's clinical, and I wouldn't put it beyond Bellingham. Does he have an injury right now? I don't know how, if so, how long he's out for, but I'm assuming it's not very serious. I would back Bellingham to be that moments guy and kind of able to put those finishes away. And Madrid have done that in the past. So if you're asking me, I would say Madrid and Arsenal have a pretty good chance of stopping them.
okay, maybe Jude is the one who will be belling the City. But yeah, moving on. RK hinted at that, and City are going to be playing Man United this weekend. So that's obviously our game to watch out for. RK is obviously going to say that City are going to win 7-0 with Haaland scoring 6 this time and KDB getting 5 assists. I'm not going to bother
I
asking
think
you.
I think I think I'm also going to say that, Swag. So I'm not I'm not going to go as bad as 7-0 with Haaland scoring 6, but I don't see a way past this. I Okay, let's put things into context. I thought City were crap against Bournemouth. I thought they were really second best in that second half. I think Bournemouth should have scored. Ederson is really coming up with some good saves as well. So they are holding on by their fingernails. But if you look at, obviously you know what City has, and then you look at the gaps that are going to be there in Manchester United's structure, in their spine, and who's the perfect person to make use of a gap? Kevin De Bruyne. And just in case they were feeling like, oh shit, something's not working, maybe my passing is just a bit off, maybe my timing is just a bit off, maybe my finishing is just a bit off, they've just had a dress rehearsal of bloody 4 assists and 5 goals, man. So yeah, I think it's going to be a comfortable Man City victory. And I am preempting any jinxing that comes from now. So any jinx that RK does is just going to help turn it towards United favor now.
Yeah, I think that that 5 goals and 4 assists just came at the wrong time because they will now head into that match thinking if they never thought that way in this match, they will definitely think that they can do anything they want. So that's definitely a bad sign. The only hope I have for this game is that United go into that completely negative kind of game tactics mindset which they sometimes do on these kind of trips. The last such example would be, of course, the Anfield away game where I think we were in a really, really bad run. No one expected anything. Probably a lot of people expected a repeat of 7-0 also would be possible and ended up defending quite well, limiting Liverpool's chances. And, Man City have been kind of vulnerable to the counter, and United are still capable of carrying a counter threat. Of course, it's a really bad miss that it pretty much looks certain that Hoyland won't be playing. That's going to be a bad miss. But we still have players who can hurt them on the counter. But another problem would be that we don't have Licha Martinez, we don't have Maguire at the back. What that means is that Lindelof comes in, and I don't think there is a bigger matchup, mismatch in Premier League than Lindelof against Haaland. So I somehow can't see past that at all. If nothing, he's going to get 3 chances just because Lindelof is playing. And Lindelof sometimes, or not sometimes, often likes to play behind the keeper. I think if you look at his defensive positioning, you might find him behind Onana at times as well. He's that deep, so not really liking that contest. So let's
So
see what
I'll just
happens. I'm just hoping that we stay really deep, compact, and hit them on the counter. That's the only hope.
I'll just correct you, RK. I think if they play, in my opinion, I think if they play the way against they played against Liverpool, I think they're going down, because in that game they offered no counter threat, and the they did defend resolutely, but they also gave the ball away so fast after winning it back. These are things that you can't do against Man City. Like Liverpool were having an off day, it ended up being a nil-nil. But if you do that against Man City, who anyway are going to have 65% of the ball, if you recover it and then you give it back within the first 10-15 seconds against Man City, I think it's not going to work. And the fact that they offered no real actual counter-attacking commitment in that game at Anfield, again, that you have to have some counter-attack against Man City, because they have frailties. They do have frailties, and I think Bournemouth. I think they should just watch the Bournemouth game. It was not rocket science. I think they just played effective football against a good team who has problems, and they're there. But I honestly don't feel like United or Ten Hag are in the right frame of mind, in the right stability situation right now to take advantage of some of that. So yeah, in my opinion, it's going to be a straightforward Man City victory.
No, completely agree. I was more talking from a defensive shape. United definitely need to offer threat on the counter, and I think Liverpool are good in the press. They are very sometimes, when they are on their game, they are pretty dominant off the ball. I think City have more problems, and United have been in good form from an attacking point of view. Of course, that was with Højlund hitting a good patch. So I would expect I'm more coming from the tactical point of view. Probably we're better served because that at least enables us to be compact deeper, right? As opposed to having that huge gap in between. So I think that's the way for us in this game.
One more game I want to call out is Newcastle against Wolves. Uh, I don't think anyone would have thought at the beginning of the season that this could be a crucial game in the battle for European spots. I think Newcastle are a couple of points above or below Wolves, and both teams are in the top half. Kudos to Gary O'Neill. Again, I feel like this is something I kept saying throughout last season when he was with Bournemouth. But Wolves were a favourite to go down this season, get relegated. Lopetegui had just left before the start of the season, and now he's got them up to eighth and being one of the form teams in the league. I remember at the start of the season, Radha also said that why is someone like Matthias Cunha having to play under someone like Gary O'Neill, and he's turned him around into a performing striker, and things are going well. I would actually hope that Wolves beat Newcastle and inject more fun in the European battle.
Yeah, I think Gary O'Neill has definitely surprised me. I didn't think Wolves. I honestly thought Wolves were going to be in the dogfight this season. I thought that this season is a step down from their ambitious projects over the last few years. I think I fell prey to the names of these foreign managers versus like a championship manager, and I think that bias definitely did kick in for me, and I thought that Gary O'Neill is a step down, but he has probably been one of the most progressive things that Wolves have done since the best of Wolves when they first came up to the league. So yeah, good on them. They have a pretty strong. I think Huang has also been really good. They have Pedro Neto, who I think outside the top six clubs is one of the best players in the league. We talked about him a little earlier in the season, and he's back. And he's back being, I think that goal he scored, I think RKU called it out as one of your goals of the week last time we spoke. So he's a really, really dynamic and exciting player. So now they have individual threats and some systems going their way as well. So yeah, very good team. I think they're better than Newcastle, if you ask me at this point of time. And Newcastle are in a slippery slope. So I do see Wolves possibly winning that game, and just wondering when's time up for Eddie Howe.
I think he gets to the end of the season, but as they've already said, their best hope of getting into Europe is the FA Cup. Unfortunately for them, they've run into Manchester City in the next round. So I think that adventure is about to finish with a hat trick of assists or goals or whatever those two crazy blonde men will come up with in that round. But on that note, listeners, we'll leave you with the abiding image of Manchester City taking on Manchester United. And when we come back next week, we'll ask RK to provide us with a 20-minute summary of the game. I wonder which direction he'll take us into.
Or
For
I might, be so badly shaken that I might need to skip the next spot.
maybe. We'll see. For now, have a good weekend. Bye bye.